So men have penises,
Yes.
and often they
Yes,
get
they
in
do.
trouble because of them.
This is true.
Throughout history, men have done sins and crimes with their penises.
Correct.
So why do men do this when the Bible says not to?
Okay.
And this is a big, horrible deal that men do to women.
Yes.
So what's up?
That's a pretty broad, loaded
broad,
question, but all
it's
right.
about men.
It is. All right. So
Well,
obviously,
according to yesteryear's science.
which we're just going to assume is right.
Right.
All right. So no, I think you're, absolutely right. The fact that men have sexual desires,
Yes.
right? Because that's where all this stems from, right?
Yep.
There's a sexual desire. And so, and we're actually created like,
Oh, we're just picking up from last time. Sorry that the first question is about penises, but that's just how it shook out. That was a horrible.
I was going to say, that's the idiom you used. Oh, dear God. Okay. So, all right. So men have, sorry for everyone. All right. So men have sexual desires. God made them with sexual desire.
Mhm.
And so the question, or not the question, but the reality is that after the fall, like all of our desires got out of whack. Okay.
Okay.
And so whether that means
men's desires or human desires?
human desires,
Okay.
men and women both. And so, I think in that, a lot of times we'll talk about, like the three great kind of evil temptations, if you want to put it that way, like the greed, sex, and power.
Mhm.
And it seems like those are like the three things that drive people.
Men.
Yeah. And men, you can say men specifically if you want to, but sex and greed for more and more and more, and then power. And so I think that sexual desire is obviously in men, and that's like good. That's from the Lord.
Mhm.
But obviously in societies that do not have Christian values, it's going to be even more extreme in terms of how promiscuous and into fornication and everything else that individuals are just engaging in any kind of sexual act, right?
Mhm.
And so, but even within societies that have Christian worldviews, the reality is it still is a problem because we're wired to, for men, we're visual people. We see a beautiful woman, and lust usually is not that far behind.
Right.
And so I think that,
Every time.
well, hopefully not
Like
every
clockwork.
time. Hopefully not every time. But I do think that's a large part of it.
Mhm.
And of course, when you're reading scripture and from the New Testament and before, men are getting married at much younger ages than we are today.
Yeah,
So if
that's
we're
a whole thing.
Yeah. So if we're talking about like today's society in America, the prolongedness of actually getting married, I think is one of the bigger issues, because you're just, like back in the day, they were young, and we would in our society freak out over how young they were when they got married. Because
Mhm.
you're talking about 13, 14 years old. And
Yeah.
right. And that would be,
I'm going to go away for this discussion. You can talk about this by yourself.
and so all I'm saying is that, so individuals were getting married right about the time they were getting, puberty had just started.
Yeah.
And they're going to get married afterwards. Actually, there's an area that we go to in one of the Central American countries we deal with. And so girls, as soon as they begin to when they hit puberty, and they actually begin to transition to, all right, I need to become a woman to begin to learn how to take care of the house and take care of the kids and those kind of things. And then she's going to get married really young. And so it's not uncommon for them to get married at 14, 15 years old. And again, that seems very odd to our American society, but we have gone from...
It seems very criminal to our American society.
100% it does. But then we've extended out teenage years and adolescence to just, nowadays, people in their mid-20s are considered like young adults and stuff, and
Yeah.
and they're still acting like they're teenagers. To be honest with you, a lot of times, not everybody, but a lot of times, and I think that's a huge problem too. We've just extended all this stuff out. But anyway, all I'm saying is, in that day and time when you had those sexual desires, sexual urges, there was like a built-in system called getting married young that was going to end up satisfying those sexual desires. And because Paul actually says in 1 Corinthians 7, when he's talking about verse 2, 1 Corinthians 7. But because sexual immorality is so common, each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman should have sexual relations with her own husband. So even in this case, they're saying, hey, listen, sexual immorality is common.
Okay.
All right. Same way that it is today. And so, but in this case, it's saying, so it actually should be, though, that you find that sexual fulfillment in the context of marriage. And
at 30.
Well, and unfortunately in our culture, that's about where it's gotten to, right? Is at 30.
Yeah.
This time, at this point, it's not that.
So what would you do to fix it? If you could change society, what would you do?
If I could just change society?
Yeah. So that men aren't committing crimes from 13 to 30 while they're waiting to get married.
Right. Well, they're not all committing crimes.
Sins.
Yeah, we could say sins.
Yeah.
And so
maybe some crimes.
And yes, and maybe some crimes. And so, but I think also in a secular society, it's not like I'm told to value the other sex as an individual made in the image of God. Right?
Okay.
So often in a secular society, I'm also like, I'm seeing what I would consider a beautiful woman, but then I'm told it's like completely okay to view that individual as a sexual object.
Okay.
Right? I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, what can I get from her? Sex. And so I think that's problematic in a secular society too. So you'd have to go into society and almost complete, like if you wanted to redo all of society, right?
Okay.
To fix this problem, it's not just like getting married at a younger age. It's also, how do we view the opposite sex?
How much younger?
Wow. And this, I'll be honest with you, this
Bible young?
This was hard for me because like I've got teenage kids and they're right around the ages we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, do I want them to get married at this age? Like the reality is no, I don't. But then again,
I'm going to leave.
Right. But then in Bible times, they were already so much further along. Like at 14, 15, 16 years old, young men are working. Yeah. They've got jobs. They're providing. They're not they're not sitting in front of a TV screen playing video games.
Okay.
So the whole, you would have to really upend.
What if they're playing
all of
Farmville?
No, that's not helping. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so much in society that would absolutely just have to like completely be turned over for you to even talk about, like, in other words, lowering the age of marriage, for example, is not a solve-all, because individuals at 15, 16 years old, they're not ready to be married. Most individuals when they're 18, 19 years old aren't ready to be married.
Nope.
and so I think that's part of the problem.
But society also tells them that they shouldn't be ready to get married at 20.
Right. And society also tells them it's okay to have sex before marriage.
Right.
So you got all these dynamics to play. But yeah, you're absolutely right. 20 is too young. Don't get married then, where I actually know couples that have gotten married really young.
Yeah.
At 19, 20, 21.
And 12.
And I don't know anyone at 12. But 19, 20, 21. And man, their marriages are great.
It's hard to make jokes during this conversation.
Yeah.
When you're talking about
13-year-olds
getting married.
Yeah.
But this was in the Bible and it's a question.
Right. Well, okay. I mean, like we're at Christmas time, right? And we think,
what does that have to do with this?
Because
what?
Because like we think about Mary, Jesus's mom,
and
she was probably 14 when
Oh.
she got pregnant. You know, so you've got like,
So God impregnated an underage girl.
well, that's what we would say in our society, but not in this society. That look. But you see what I'm saying?
All right, next question.
It's uncomfortable, but it's also, I mean, it also shows how much, one, society has changed. Two, that individuals grow up. I mean, I think here's the problem. We're wanting to extend, if I'm a Christian and adolescence has extended itself out to as far as it has in our society, and we're telling our kids wait until marriage to have sex.
Right. Well, this is a huge problem.
It's a huge problem because we're telling them to wait, but then by waiting, in a lot of cases, we're saying, you know, if you extend adolescence out and people aren't ready to get married until their 30s, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean,
see the waiting from 18 to 30 part. I'm down with that.
Okay.
No, not really. I'm just saying I'm down with discussing that portion.
But the other,
yeah, but
seems a little too much.
Got married at 14 in the Bible. I don't know how you
right.
I don't know how you bring that up today
well,
without getting put on a list.
And we say the Bible, to be honest with you, like, so this practice is still happening today in lots of villages around the world.
Yeah.
And it was happening 150 years ago in our own country.
True.
So, you know, like, we're talking about it as if it's like this, oh my gosh. But I guess it just shows what the modern secularized society has done to individuals.
Okay.
And individuals aren't ready to be married when they're 13, 14 years old. They're still kids.
Yep.
In today's society, 150 years ago, they weren't just kids. They were working the farms, working the land, working in factories. All
right. So what are men supposed to do given that our society is like this?
Okay. So you're talking.
How am I supposed to not sin from 18 to 30?
30. Okay. I mean, obviously the answer that I would want to give is go ahead and get married younger. I mean, that would be, you know,
okay,
within that time frame, you know, like early 20s, get married.
Yeah, but these women out here crazy at 22, 20 also.
Yeah, there's the crazy there too.
Yeah.
And so, and I'll be honest, I just think it's really difficult in today's society.
Okay.
Because I think that not only are you telling individuals to wait to have sex, but then you're also talking to them about, all right, and don't look at pornography. And, you know, and then you've got, to be honest, let's just call it for what it is, like whether it's on TV or going to the gym or whatever. I mean, like, it is difficult not to just look around and lust, you know? And so, especially if you're a young man and you've got hormones raging, and I'm not saying that, you know, women need to be dressed from, you know, their neck down to their ankles, right, with covered in clothes. But what I am saying is that we're asking men to abstain from sex, not engage in sexual fornication of any kind. I think that it's hard because of how much is thrown at them. Yet, do I think it's possible to wait and have sex until you get married? Yes, I do. And so, I mean, you know, I was in my, you know, I was in mid-20s when I got married, you know, and my wife as well. And neither of us had sex before we got married. So yes, it's possible, but I do think that it is difficult, you know, and I think you have to be in a group of, you know, a fellowship of believers who are holding you accountable, and, you know, and you're trying to pursue the Lord, and yeah, you have a built-in accountability, because I don't think it's possible without that.
Stay strong out there.
Yeah. Yeah.